What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. So we're getting ready to start the second book, A Clash of Kings. Today we're going to cover the prologue and chapters 1 through 6. It's going to be a long video, so grab your snacks and I hope you enjoy. Maester Crescent watches from his balcony as the red comet spreads across the dawn over Dragonstone, like a wound in the sky. The feeble 80-year-old chides himself for considering it an omen, yet he has never seen a comet so bright, nor of that color. It is even visible during the day now. At the same time, hot steam has begun to issue from vents beneath the Dragonmont volcano, and a white raven has arrived from the Citadel, declaring the end of the longest summer in living memory, 10 years, 2 turns, and 16 days. Too many omens to deny. It is enough to make any man believe in omens, but the old Maester cannot decide what they might mean. Cressen's eventual successor, Maester Pylos, interrupts his thoughts with word that Princess Shireen wishes to see the White Raven. The title princess is a new appellation for the young girl now that her father Stannis Baratheon is king. Crescent bids Pylos to show her in. The shy princess enters, followed by her shuffling fool Patchface, who wears a mock helm made from a bucket with antlers and cowbells. Perhaps once Patchface was a good fool, but now he has lost his wits and is incoherent as often as not. Only Shireen laughs at his antics or cares about him at all. Shireen's face is unattractive, even discounting the disfigurement from a bout of grayscale that nearly claimed her life as an infant. Shireen asks to see the White Raven, and the Maester will not deny her since she has been denied too much during her life of almost 10 years. She is the saddest child the Maester has ever known, and he considers her another mark of his failures. While Pylos goes to fetch the White Raven, Crescent thinks of how the solemn 25-year-old Pylos is not a good match for Dragonstone because grim places need lightning. However, a Maester does not choose his post, and Crescent recalls coming to Dragonstone himself 12 years ago with his lord, though he never liked it here and never considered it home. Of late, he wakes from restless nightmares of the Red Woman. Crescent often does not know where he is. Crescent asks Shireen why she is up so early. The girl explains that she had nightmares of dragons coming to eat her. The Maester remembers that she has always had nightmares. Thinking of the many dragon-inspired statues and buildings of Dragonstone, Crescent attempts to comfort her by explaining that Dragonstone was once the westernmost outpost of the ancient freehold of Valyria. The dragon towers were created to make the fortress seem more formidable. He explains that the Valyrians had long forgotten ways of shaping stone and used them to make the thousands of stone dragons on the island. Shireen is unconvinced, telling him that the Red Woman says the thing in the sky is dragon's breath. Crescent explains that it is only a comet and will be gone soon. Shireen states that her mother says the White Raven means it is not summer anymore, and the Maester confirms that it is true. He then goes on to tell her about the White Ravens and how the Citadel has determined that summer is over. Crescent says that it is hoped that there will be a warm autumn with bountiful harvests. He knows that a long summer is said to bring a long winter, but does not want to frighten the child. When she asks if it will snow, the Maester says it will, but he prays it will not be for years yet. Then Pylos returns with the White Raven, and the Maester introduces the raven to Shireen. Shireen is delighted to learn that it can speak. Patchface begins to sing, "The shadows come to dance, my lord, dance, my lord, dance, my lord," hopping from one foot to the other. "The shadows come to stay, my lord, stay, my lord, stay, my lord." He jerks his head with each word, and his bells make a clangor. Shireen declares that Patchface has been singing that song often lately, and it scares her. She asks the Maester to make him stop. Crescent thinks back to how the old lord, Stefan Baratheon, found the old fool in Volantis while seeking a wife for Rhaegar Targaryen. Upon their return journey, within sight of home, Their ship sank, killing everyone aboard. Patchface was washed up on the shore 3 days later, naked, cold, and clammy. They took him for dead, but then he coughed up water and survived, albeit broken in mind and body, hardly capable of speech, let alone wit. Many suggest that it would be a kindness for Crescent to let the mad boy die, but he refused, and now wonders at that decision. Crescent assures Shireen that Patchface is just rambling and does not comprehend any of what he says. Pylos, who went to fetch Crescent's breakfast, returns to inform him that Sir Davos Seaworth returned during the night and has been with Stannis most of the night. Crescent complains that he should have been notified, as it is his duty to advise the king. Asking pardons of Shireen, the old man has Pylos help him hobble with his bad hips to the stone drum, the main keep of Dragonstone. He passes windows from which he can see 3,000 men in the camp outside the wall, and the anchorage filled with ships, since no ship that has come within sight of Dragonstone has been allowed to leave. Once inside the stone drum, Crescent leaves Pylos, stating he wants to see Stannis alone. As he ascends the stairs, he regrets leaving Pylos. He meets Sir Davos coming down the stairs. Davos reveals that his mission as envoy to the Stormlands has been a failure. It is as Crescent warned. The lords sworn to Storm's End have no love for Stannis and will not support his claim. Instead, they have joined with the lords of the Reach in supporting Stannis' younger brother Renly. News of Renly claiming the crown leads Crescent to worry for the youngest Baratheon. When Sir Davos mentions that Renly has instituted a new Kingsguard, Crescent recalls that Renly was always fond of games and rich bright fabrics as a child. "Look at me, I'm a dragon," and "Look at me, I'm a wizard," the boy was always shouting. Crescent sees Renly's bid to be king as no more than another game. "Look at me, I am a king." Crescent asks Davos if he could bring Stannis any hope, but Davos insists that the only hope he could bring would have been the false sort. This leads Crescent to recall that Sir Davos was once a notorious smuggler who sailed a black ship past a red wine blockade in the dead of night to deliver onions and saltfish to Stannis' starving garrison during the siege of Storm's End. It allowed them to survive until Lord Eddard Stark could lift the siege. Stannis knighted Davos for his deed. However, as punishment for his past misdeeds, Stannis himself cut short all the fingers of Davos' left hand, save the thumb. Davos had insisted that Stannis do the cutting. Crescent realizes that a man like that would give no false hope to Stannis. Sir Davos declares that if Stannis marches on King's Landing now, as is his intent, with so small an army, it would only be to die. Crescent responds that Davos has done all he can, and that it is now his turn. Crescent finds Stannis in the top room of the keep, looking down at the painted table, which is shaped as a detailed map of the continent of Westeros. Stannis greets him with the statement that he knew Crescent would come even without a summons. He says that Crescent is now old and needs his sleep, and that he would have learned what Davos knew on his own anyway. Talk between the Maester and the king quickly turns into a rant by Stannis about how the Baratheon birthright of Storm's End, the Stormlands, and its incomes should have passed to him rather than Renly when their brother Robert assumed the Iron Throne. Stannis did not want Dragonstone, but when his brother commanded it, he occupied it and built his brother's fleet. It is an old grievance made new by the fact that Dragonstone, ancient and strong though it is, commands the allegiance of only a handful of lesser lords whose stony island holdings are too thinly occupied to supply the men that Stannis needs to seize his rightful throne. Crescent explains that Robert did him an injustice, but gave him lordship of Dragonstone because a man's strength was needed to hold it, and Renly was just a boy. Stannis declares that Renly is still a boy, a thieving child who has never done anything to deserve the throne. Stannis wonders aloud why the gods inflicted him with brothers. Then he asks about the advice Renly gets from his maester, but Crescent doubts that Renly would seek counsel. Renly is bold and heedless, much like Robert. When Stannis asks what he is to tell the few anxious bannermen he does command, Maester Crescent reminds him that House Lannister is his true enemy and suggests that he join with Renly to defeat them. Stannis flatly refuses. Crescent yields immediately and suggests a partnership with the new king in the north, Robb Stark, who commands all the power of Winterfell and Riverrun. Stannis again refuses, claiming that Robb is a green boy and another false king that seeks to steal half his kingdom. Crescent suggests that half a realm is better than none, and that Robb may even submit in exchange for helping in avenging his father. Stannis remains adamant and launches into another rant about the slights he receives at the hand of his brother Robert. Why should I avenge Eddard Stark? The man was nothing to me. Oh, Robert loved him, to be sure. Loved him as a brother. How often did I hear that? I was his brother, not Ned Stark, but you would have never known by the way he treated me. I held Storm's End for him, watching good men starve while Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwyne feasted within sight of my walls. Did Robert thank me? No. He thanked Stark for lifting the siege when we were down to rats and radishes. I built a fleet at Robert's command, took Dragonstone in his name. Did he ever take my hand and say, "Well done, brother. Whatever should I do without you?" No. He blamed me for letting Willem Darry steal away Viserys and the babe, as if I could have stopped it. I sat on his council for 15 years, helping Jon Arryn rule his realm while Robert drank and whored. But when Jon died, did my brother name me as his hand? No. He went galloping off to his dear friend Ned Stark and offered him the honor, and small good it did either of them. Crescent then proposes a marriage pact between Shireen and young Robert Arryn. Stannis dismisses the possibility of bringing the weak and sickly Robert to Dragonstone as planned before Lord Arryn's death because Lysa Arryn is paranoid and hides him in the Eyrie. Crescent urges him to send Shireen and her fool to the Eyrie instead. Dragonstone is a grim home for a child. Stannis now agrees that it is worth a try. Then Stannis' wife, Queen Selyse, arrives to argue that Stannis should not have to beg or bargain for help. They all owe their allegiance to him as the true king. Queen Selyse has been entirely converted to the worship of the foreign god R'hllor by the Red Priestess Melisandre of Asshai. Stannis tells her he needs swords and asks whether she has an army. She replies that House Florent can provide an army, but Stannis retorts that they can only provide 2,000 men and are too close to Highgarden. The Queen proclaims that the comet is an omen from the Lord of Light, that he will aid Stannis in his conquest. Stannis, who does not share his wife's newfound faith, questions how many men the Red God will deliver him. Selyse insists that R'hllor will provide all the power of Highgarden and Storm's End. Stannis reminds her that those men now support Renly. Selyse agrees but suggests that if Renly should die, his army would join Stannis. She then notes that Melisandre has looked into the flames and seen Renly dead. Crescent is horrified by the notion and pleads that fratricide is evil. Stannis declares that he has heard Crescent's advice and will now hear hers, and sends the aged Maester away. By the time Crescent joins Pylos at the bottom of the steps, he can hardly stand erect and needs to be helped back to his rooms. There Crescent contemplates his options. He raised Robert, Stannis, and Renly after their father died, and cannot watch one kill the other. He knows everything that Queen Selyse has said has been preached to her by Melisandre the Red Priestess. It is she who must be silenced before she can convert King Stannis to her evil schemes and spread her mad religion beyond Dragonstone. Therefore, Crescent goes to a small workroom under the rookery stair and retrieves a small vial of purple crystals, a poison known in Westeros only as the Strangler. Dissolved in wine, one of the small crystals is enough to cause the victim's throat muscles to constrict more tightly than any fist, making it impossible for the victim to breathe. Crescent plans to put one in Lady Melisandre's drink at the feast Stannis is holding for his bannermen tonight. He knows it is a dreadful thing he is planning, but surely the gods will forgive him. As he lays down for a nap, Crescent wonders if the comet is his foreboding murder. Hours later, Crescent wakes to discover he has overslept and is late for the feast. He calls for Pylos, who should have awoken him, but Pylos does not come, so he has to shout for the servants. As he crosses the long gallery, the comet outside the windows look malevolent to him, but he thinks he should not fear. When he enters the great hall, he finds Stannis and his bannermen have begun without him. As Crescent crosses the room, Patchface the Fool lurches into him while singing the same song from the morning, and they both fall to the floor. Face to face with Crescent, the Fool says, "Under the sea, you'll fall up. I know, I know." Crescent is too feeble to rise on his own, but fortunately strong hands lift him to his feet. When he turns to thank the knight he believes helped him, he comes face to face with Lady Melisandre herself, clothed in red silk with red eyes. The Red Priestess mockingly advises him to mind his steps, intoning her religion prayer, "For the night is dark and full of terrors." Crescent insists that only children fear the dark. Melisandre gives him a riddle, a clever fool and a foolish wise man, and places Patchface's ridiculous antlered helm upon Crescent's head, telling him, "A crown to match your chain, Lord Maester." All around him, Crescent hears laughter. He removes the crown, fighting his rage. He tells her he needs no crown but truth, to which Melisandre replies that some truths are not taught in Old Town. When he reaches the high table, Crescent sees that Stannis has given his accustomed seat to Pylos. When questioned why he did not wake him, Pylos blushes and states that he was told to let Crescent rest and that Crescent was not needed here. Crescent looks at the gaudy knights and captains, aged and sour Lord Adrian Celtigar, handsome Lord Manford Valerian, plump 14-year-old Lord Durham Bar Aemon, homely Sir Axel Florent, pious Lord Gunsar Sunglass, and the Lycene Captain Salador San. Only Sir Davos Seaworth is simply dressed. Melisandre sits to Stannis' right hand in the place of high honor. Of all the lords, only Davos will meet his gaze with pity in his eyes. Stannis declares that Pylos will assume all of Crescent's duties, insisting that Crescent is too ill and confused to be of use to him any longer. Crescent cannot believe it is Stannis' voice that states this. Crescent is heartbroken by the rejection, remembering how he was the one that loved Stannis as a boy, perhaps because Stannis was the one who was unloved. Crescent accepts and meekly pleads for some place at the table, though he still feels he belongs at Stannis' side. Of all the assembled lords, only Sir Davos offers him a seat. As Patchface continues to caper about, Sir Davos comments that they should wear motley since they are about fool's business. Melisandre has seen victory in her flames, and so Stannis plans to press his claim no matter the numbers. Crescent urges Stannis a final time to ally himself with Robb Stark or Lysa Arryn, but Queen Selyse insists that R'hllor is the only ally Stannis needs. Crescent replies that gods makes uncertain allies, and here R'hllor has no power. Melisandre tells him that if he believes that, he should put Patchface's crown back on, and Queen Selyse commands thus. Stannis grudgingly orders the fool to give the crown to Crescent. After the fool places the crown on Crescent's head, Selyse suggests that Crescent sing. Stannis refuses and declares that Crescent has served him well. Suddenly, Crescent sees the opportunity to poison Melisandre. He is close to Davos's cup, which he takes and slips a crystal into. He is sure only Davos notices. Crescent proposes to Melisandre that they share a cup of wine to toast to her god's power. She agrees. Davos tries to stop him, but Crescent insists he is doing what he must for the sake of the realm and his lord's soul. Before they drink, Melisandre gives him the opportunity to back out, but Crescent refuses. Melisandre drinks most of the cup, leaving only a small amount for Crescent. Crescent pushes away his fear and drinks as well. The ruby at Melisandre's throat glows as she insists that her god R'hllor does have power. Crescent tries to reply, but his throat has already begun to constrict. Unaffected by the poison, Melisandre looks on with pity as Crescent collapses and dies. Arya used to think her nickname of Arya Horseface was bad until the orphan boy Lamy Greenhands named her Lumpy Head because of her lumpy, uneven haircut. Her head actually feels lumpy when she touches it. When Yoren dragged her into an alley after her father's execution, Arya was sure he meant to kill her. Instead, the smelly old black brother had only cut her hair and promised to deliver her to her home at Winterfell when he and his new recruits passed by. However, Yoren insisted that she pretend to be an orphan boy named Arry because half of the new recruits would turn her over to Queen Cersei quick as spit for a pardon and a few silvers, and the other half would do the same but rape her first. Yoren claimed it should not be too hard to pass as a boy. The hardest part would be passing her water in the woods alone. There are 30 of them. Some of the recruits are orphan boys recruited with promises of food and clothing, but others are criminals from the dungeons under the Red Keep. The most frightening are the 3 from the black cells, whom Yoren keeps chained in the back of a wagon. The 5 wagons contain supplies for the wall: hide, bars of pig iron, a cage of ravens, cloth, books, paper, ink, sour leaf, oil, medicine, and spices. The gates of King's Landing were easy to pass, just as Yoren claimed. The Lannister guards were searching for the highborn daughter of the hand of the king, not a skinny boy with his hair chopped off. Yoren called one of them by name, and they were waved through. As they were leaving, Arya wished the Blackwater rush would rise and wash away the city, until she remembered her sister would be washed away too. Instead, she decided to wish for Winterfell. Yoren was not wrong about passing water being the hardest part. The men ignored her, but the orphan boys, Lamy, Green Hands, and Hot Pie take her silence to mean she is frightened, stupid, or deaf. Arya is 2 years younger and quite a bit smaller than them. One morning, Lamy and Hot Pie begin questioning Arya about her sword needle, wondering where she got it. Hot Pie sarcastically suggests that maybe she was a squire, but Lamy disagrees and argues that needle is probably not even a real sword. Arya angrily shouts back that it is Castleford steel, but that only gives rise to claims that she stole it. This angers Arya even more because Needle was a gift from her bastard brother Jon Snow, and she will not let them call him a thief. Then Hot Pie gets the idea that he can steal Needle from her, and Lamy encourages him. Hot Pie's declaration that she doesn't even know how to use a sword takes Arya back to the stable boy she stabbed during her escape from the Red Keep, but she doesn't mention the incident. The boys continue to mock her, saying that she is going to cry and wet her pants. The bull, an older boy with shaggy black hair and a bull motif helmet, tells them to let her be, but Hot Pie continues. Arya attempts to defuse the situation by offering to surrender her wooden practice sword, but Hot Pie threatens to beat her up like he did another boy and reaches for Needle. Arya uses her practice sword to whack Hot Pie's donkey. The animal bucks and throws Hot Pie to the ground. Arya dismounts and breaks his nose with her practice sword before turning on Lamy, who cowers away in fear. The bull shouts a warning and Arya turns to face Hot Pie. The injured boy throws a rock at her, but Arya ducks and closes distance to strike him again on the hand, cheek, knee, and back of the head. Dazed and wounded, Hot Pie attempts to charge her, but Arya slips into a water dance pose and stabs the boy in the groin. By the time Yoren pulls her off, Arya has hit Hot Pie a dozen more times and the boy's pants are brown and smelly. Yoren drags her off the road into a tangle of trees, cursing and muttering. There he orders her to drop her breeches and scream loudly, then whacks her several times with her own stick sword. Arya does not want to scream but cannot help it, and her thighs and cheeks are ablaze with pain. When he is finished, Yoren tells her that if she ever uses her stick sword on another one of her companions again, she will get twice what she gives. Yoren also explains that however much her punishment hurts, Hot Pie is feeling much worse. He points out that Hot Pie and Lamy had no part in her father's death, and hitting them won't bring him back. Arya says she knows that. Yoren goes on to explain that he was set to leave when he received a message to wait for Lord Eddard, who was supposed to be allowed to take the Black, only something went queer. Arya blames King Joffrey and declares someone should kill him. Yoren replies that someone will, but not him or not her. Afterward, Arya is unable to sit a donkey for several days, but Hot Pie is unable to do anything but lie in the back of a wagon for even longer, and Lamy stays as far away from her as possible.
The bull points out that Lami twitches whenever she looks at him now. Arya does not answer since it seems safer not to talk. That night, while looking up at the sky, the bull calls the red comet the red sword, saying that it looks like a sword fresh from the forge. Arya can see it as a sword as well, but to her it is her father's great sword ice, covered with her father's blood as it was after his head was cut off. When she finally falls asleep, Arya dreams of Winterfell. She longs to see her mother, Robb, Bran, and Rickon, but more than anyone she misses her brother Jon on the wall. She wishes that somehow they could come to the wall before Winterfell, just so she can see Jon again. Sansa is watching the long tail of the red comet from her tower window when Sir Aerys Oakheart arrives to escort her to the tourney on King Joffrey's name day. She asks him what it means. Sir Aerys declares that it means glory to her betrothed, King Joffrey. The gods have raised it as a banner in his honor, and the small folk have named it King Joffrey's Comet. Sansa is not so sure and replies that she has heard the servant call it the Dragon's Tail. Sir Aerys replies that Joffrey sits on Aegon the Dragon's throne, and crimson is the color of House Lannister, so it must mean he will triumph over his enemies. Sansa wonders apprehensively if this is true, since her mother and brother are among Joffrey's enemies. Yet Joffrey is a Baratheon as much as a Lannister, so his comet should be gold. Sir Aerys compliments Sansa on her gown, whose long sleeves hide the bruises given to her by Sir Boros Blount at Joffrey's command when he learned that her brother Robb had been proclaimed king in the north. Of all the Kingsguard, Sir Aerys is always courteous to Sansa and is her preferred escort since he is the only one who objects to hitting her and never hits hard. The others will obey without question except Sandor Clegane, but Joffrey never commands the Hound to hit her. As they walk, Sansa asks who will win the tourney. Sir Aerys states he will, though there will be only 40 contestants, and there is small honor in unhorsing green boys. Sansa muses that this will be very different from the magnificent Hands tourney. With King Robert dead and 3 kings vying for power, it is not surprising that Joffrey's tourney must be held within the Red Keep. Sansa asks if Queen Cersei will attend, but learns that the Queen has urgent business with the small council.
Sir Aerys also mentions that Cersei is furious that Tywin Lannister will not bring his army to the city as commanded. The pitiful crowd in the small outer bailey fills only half the seats. Most of the spectators are gold cloaks or wear the crimson of House Lannister. Only a few are nobility. Grey-faced Lord Giles Rosby, Lady Tanda Stokeworth with her daughters Felice and Lawless, the exiled Prince Jalabar Zoe, and Lady Ermesan Hayford, who is only a baby. The Hound announces Sansa's arrival at the royal box. Princess Myrcella gives a shy nod, but Prince Tommen excitedly tells her that he is to ride in the tourney. Joffrey quickly interjects that Tommen will be riding against a straw Quintain. After Sir Aerys excuses himself, Joffrey studies Sansa and declares he is pleased she wore the stones he gave her. Sansa is relieved that Joffrey has chosen to play the gallant today. Once Sansa is seated, Joffrey informs her that the beggar king Viserys Targaryen is dead. Joffrey is amused by the irony of a dragon king being killed with a molten gold crown. He suggests that perhaps he will feed Sansa's brother Robb to wolves and boasts that he intends to challenge Robb to single combat. Sansa states that she would like to see that. Joffrey is suspicious of her meaning, so Sansa distracts him by asking if he will compete today. Joffrey responds that his mother claims that it would not be fitting for him to compete in his own tourney, otherwise he would be champion. When asked to concur, the Hound says, "Against this lot? Why not?" When Sansa asks the Hound if he will joust, the scarred man replies that it would not be worth the bother since this is a tourney of gnats. Joffrey suggests he should make the Hound fight the champion to the death, but the Hound replies that Joffrey would only be one night the poorer, and the Hound is not a knight. When the trumpet sounds, Joffrey takes Sansa's hand, which repulses her, but she forces herself to be still. In the first joust, Sir Meryn Trant of the Kingsgown defeats Sir Hobar Redwine on the second pass. The Redwine twins are hostages like Sansa, and she doubts they entered the tourney voluntarily. Joffrey is disappointed by the poor show. Next, Sir Balon Swan faces the new made squire Morris Slint, who is having difficulty with his lance. The sight of Jaina Slint's heir takes Sansa back to the day her father was beheaded. It was Jaina Slint who threw her father down and held him while Sir Ilan Payne swung the sword. Her prayer for Morris to embarrass himself is answered when the former commoner is violently unhorsed. Joffrey hoots in derision, telling Tommen that they picked the wrong foe for him. Morris jousts worse than a quintain. Then it is Sir Horace Wedwine's turn. He fares better than his twin, unhorsing an old knight bedecked in silver griffins who makes a poor contest. Disgusted, Joffrey declares this a feeble show. He is getting bored and his mood is darkening, which worries Sansa. Next, Sir Dantas Hollard is called to face the free rider Lothar Brune. Brune takes his place, but Sir Dantos arrives drunk and half-naked, struggling to catch and mount his horse. The audience all laugh at the drunken knight's antics except for Joffrey. Eventually, Danto gives up trying to mount, sits down in the dirt and forfeits the match, and asks for more wine. Joffrey stands and shouts, "A cask from the cellars! I'll see him drowned in it!" Without thinking, Sansa protests and is immediately shocked that she dared, given Joffrey's mood. He turns on her furious at being gainsaid, and Sansa struggles to make up a story that it is cursed to kill a man on one's name day. Joffrey does not believe her, but the Hound comes to her rescue by agreeing that what a man sows on his name day, he reaps throughout the year. Joffrey reluctantly agreed to have the fool killed on the morrow. Sansa seizes the opportunity to suggest that Joffrey make Dantos wear motley and clown for him as a fool instead of executing him. He does not deserve the mercy of a quick death. Joffrey likes the idea and agrees. Sir Dantos thanks both Joffrey and Sansa. Once Sir Dantos has been led away, the Master of Revels inquires whether he should summon a new opponent for Lothar Brune or proceed with the next tilt. Instead, Joffrey calls off the tourney in disgust, saying he would have them all put to death if it weren't his name day. Tommen vehemently protests that he was supposed to ride against the quintain. An argument among the royal siblings ensues. When Myrcella finally points out that their mother agreed, Joffrey mocks her for being childish, but Myrcella points out that they are children. The Hound, laughing, tells Joffrey that she has a point. Joffrey sullenly agrees. Tommen's opponent is a child-sized quintain wearing a helmet and antlers. Tommen hits it solidly, but it spins around to strike Tommen on the back of the head, unhorsing him. This incites a gale of laughter from the crowd, most of all from King Joffrey. Princess Myrcella rushes out to help her brother to his feet. Sansa, with queer courage, suggests that Joffrey should accompany her to help and tell Tommen he rode well. Joffrey angrily refuses, stating that getting unhorsed is not riding well. However, Tommen shows courage when he prepares to try again. Sansa finds herself wishing that Tommen was the eldest. She wouldn't mind marrying him. Just then, the portcullis rises and the gates of the Red Keep open. A column of dusty horsemen enter under the golden lion banner of House Lannister. Some of the horsemen wear the armor of Lannister men-at-arms, but the majority are free riders, sellswords, and monstrous savages. In their midst rides Tyrion Lannister, the ugliest man Sansa has ever set eyes upon. Tommen and Myrcella rush to greet their uncle, and Sansa is stunned to see that Tommen and Tyrion are the same height. After greeting his niece and nephew, the dwarf waddles over to Joffrey, shadowed by a black-haired sellsword and a one-eyed savage. When Tyrion greets him, Joffrey expresses surprise at Tyrion's arrival, and the Hound comments that they heard Tyrion was dead. Myrcella expresses happiness that he is alive. Tyrion thanks her and then gives his condolences to Joffrey and Sansa for their loss of their fathers. Sansa is speechless, wondering if Tyrion is mocking her. Joffrey is momentarily confused until Tyrion reminds him that his own father, King Robert, has also recently died. Joffrey responds, "Oh, him, yes. It was very sad. A boar killed him." Tyrion asks him if that is what they say. Sansa, armoring herself in courtesy, apologized to Tyrion for his abduction by her mother. Tyrion thanks Sansa for the sentiment, telling her that many people are sorry, and some will be even sorrier. Then Tyrion asks Joffrey where he might find Queen Cersei. Joffrey answers that she is with the small council. Jaime Lannister keeps losing battles and was captured. Riverrun was lost, and Robb is calling himself king. Tyrion comments that all sorts of people are calling themselves king these days. Suspicious of the comment, Joffrey tells Tyrion stiffly that he is happy he is alive and asks about a gift for his name day. Tyrion responds that he has brought his wits, and Joffrey replies that he would prefer Robb's head. Before Joffrey departs with Myrcella and Tommen, the Hound tells Tyrion to guard his tongue. Sansa is left alone with Tyrion and his monsters. Unable to think of anything else to say, Sansa comments on Tyrion's injured arm. Tyrion tells her that a Northman hit him with a morning star, but he escaped by falling off his horse. Tyrion asks if it is mourning for her father that makes Sansa so sad. Sansa reflexively insists that her father, mother, and brother are traitors and that she is loyal to her beloved Joffrey. Tyrion is unconvinced and responds by comparing her to a deer surrounded by wolves. Sansa, without thinking, whispers, "Lions." The dwarf gently takes her hand and assures her that he is only a little lion and means her no harm, then departs. Sansa notes that Tyrion speaks to her more gently than Joffrey, but then she remembers that Queen Cersei once spoke gently as well. She reminds herself that Tyrion is still a Lannister and that she must never trust a Lannister again. Outside the small council chamber, Sir Mandon Moore insists that Queen Cersei has left orders not to be disturbed. Tyrion quips that he will only be a small disturbance and produces his letter from Lord Tywin Lannister. Sir Mandon Moore remains unimpressed and expressionless, a trait which makes Jaime Lannister consider him the most dangerous of the Kingsguard beside himself, since his face never hints at his next action. Refusing to back down on his first day, Tyrion introduces Bronn and Timett. After Sir Mandon learns that Bronn killed Sir Vardis Egan, he allows Tyrion to enter. Tyrion relishes that he has passed his first test. When Cersei sees him, she exclaims, "You?" with equal parts disbelief and distaste. Taking care to act confident in front of her, Tyrion remarks that he can see where Joffrey learned his courtesies. When Cersei asks why he is there, Tyrion saunters over to deliver their Lord Father's letter. Varys inspects the seal and proclaims it genuine before Cersei snatches it. Cersei has taken the king's seat, so Tyrion takes the hand's chair, which seems only appropriate. Cersei declares the letter absurd and explains that her father has authorized Tyrion to act as hand of the king in his absence. Grand Maester Pycelle offers greetings, and Lord Janoslynt declares that there is need of Tyrion with rioting in the streets and a grim omen in the sky. Cersei lashes out that Slynt is the one in charge of keeping order and that Tyrion would serve them better on the battlefield. Tyrion replies that he is done with fighting, preferring the finer things in life. Littlefinger declares Tyrion a man after his own heart, which reminds Tyrion that he must have a talk with Littlefinger about a certain dagger used in an attempt on Bran Stark's life. Cersei is not happy to learn that Tyrion has brought only a few hundred men. She is worried that Stannis or Renly Baratheon will attack the city. Then she declares that only the king can name a hand, and Joffrey has named Lord Tywin. Tyrion points out that Lord Tywin named him and recommends that Cersei take it up with him at Harrenhal. Tyrion requests a private moment with Cersei, and the other counselors excuse themselves. As he leaves, Littlefinger asks about living arrangements. Tyrion says he plans to take up residence in the Tower of the Hand. Littlefinger declares Tyrion a braver man than him, considering the fate of the last two hands. Tyrion corrects this to 4, explaining that Arry's last hand died in the sack of King's Landing and the one before him was burned to death. The two before them were luckier in that they merely died penniless in exile. Littlefinger japes that in that case he would sooner bed down in the dungeon than the Tower of the Hand, and Tyrion privately thinks that Littlefinger might get that wish. Once they are alone, Cersei asks why their father would ignore her royal command and inflict Tyrion on her. Tyrion points out that Lord Tywin has a large army and can do that, nor is he the first to do so. Cersei threatens to call the letter a forgery and throw Tyrion in a dungeon. Tyrion agrees that no one, not even their father, would protest,
but asks why Cersei would do such a thing when he has come to help. Cersei insists that it was their father's help she wanted, but Tyrion can tell that it is Jaime she really wants, so he promises that if she supports him, he will find a way to free Jaime. Cersei asks how, given that Robb and Catelyn Stark are not likely to forget the beheading of Lord Eddard. Tyrion notes that Cersei still holds the Stark daughters, forcing Cersei to reveal that she only has Sansa. She sent Sir Meryn Trent to apprehend Arya, but her dancing master interfered and the girl escaped and is likely dead. Tyrion asks Cersei if she trusts the small council since their father does not. Joffrey's short reign has been full of follies and disasters, which suggests the king is getting some very bad counsel. Cersei concedes that Joffrey, always willful, now believes that as king he is free to do as he pleases, not as he is bid. She explains that Joffrey was instructed to allow Eddard Stark to take the Black, but took it upon himself to order Eddard killed, and Janos Slynt and Sir Ilyn Payne were quick to take the command. Cersei also mentions that as a result, the High Septon is accusing them of lying to him and profaning the great Sept of Baelor. Tyrion then questions Cersei about Slynt, asking whose idea it was to make him Lord of Harrenhal and a member of the small council. Cersei replies that Littlefinger made the arrangements. They needed the gold cloaks on their side to stop Eddard Stark before he handed the throne over to Stannis Baratheon. Cersei adds that it was close even so. All might have been lost if Sansa had not come to Cersei with her father's plans. Tyrion expresses surprise that Sansa would betray her own father's plans, but Cersei explains that the girl was in love with Joffrey and would have done anything for him right up until he cut her father's head off and called it mercy. Tyrion also learns it was Varys who suggested Sir Barristan Selmy be removed as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard when Joffrey wanted to blame someone for Robert's death. It freed the Lord Commander's post and council seat for Jaime and allowed Joffrey to throw a bone to the Hound. A generous severance was provided, but Selmy would have none of it and fled the city. Tyrion notes that he heard Selmy slew the 2 gold cloaks sent to apprehend him, which Cersei blames on Slynt's incompetence. Tyrion points out that Barristan the Bold is a living legend who lends credibility to any man he serves. Cersei admits she did not think of that. Tyrion points out that their father did, and that is why he sent Tyrion to bring Joffrey to heel. Cersei argues that Joffrey will be no more tractable for Tyrion, but Tyrion points out that Joffrey will be more inclined to listen if he feels threatened, something he doesn't feel with her. Cersei insists that she will never let Tyrion harm her son, but Tyrion assures her that he only means to threaten. Cersei admits it is worth a try, but remains adamant that Tyrion do nothing without her consent. Tyrion agrees, then asks for an honest answer to who killed Jon Arryn. Cersei tells him she does not know, and goes on to say that Eddard Stark asked her the same question, and hinted that Jon Arryn suspected her of something she hesitates to mention. Tyrion earns a slap in the face when he reveals that he knew about her incest with Jaime all along. Tyrion insists that he is not as blind as their father, and makes several rude comments that earn him more slaps until he finally warns her that he is getting angry. Tyrion asks how King Robert was killed, and Cersei explains that Lancel Lannister gave him strong wine of 3 times the normal potency before he faced the boar, which Cersei claims tasted like triumph when it was served at Robert's funeral feast. Tyrion, who rather liked King Robert, comments that Cersei was born to be a widow as he rises to leave. Cersei objects that she has not excused him and presses for details about how he will free Jaime. Tyrion tells her he does not know yet, but reminds her to make sure no harm comes to Sansa. Outside, Timett has disappeared to explore the city, so Tyrion commands Bronn to find him and make arrangements for the clansmen in the barracks beneath the Tower of the Hand. Tyrion commands Vylar, the captain of Cersei's household guard, to provide an escort for him to the Broken Anvil Inn, hoping to remind the captain that his oath is to Casterly Rock and not to Cersei alone. As he leaves the Red Keep, Tyrion orders the spike heads of Eddard Stark and his household taken down and given to the Silent Sisters. When Vylar hesitates because King Joffrey ordered them to remain, Tyrion warns him that if they are not removed, one of the spikes will have his head. As they ride through the city, Tyrion notices the effect the war is having on the common people. The markets are full of ragged men selling their household goods, but bare of farmers selling food. There are guards at every shop, and Tyrion notes that in lean times, even bakers find sellswords cheaper than bread. Valar confirms that very little food is coming into the city, with the roads closed to south and west. Tyrion asks what Cersei has done, and is told she has tripled the city watch and has thousands of craftsmen working on the defenses, including the Alchemist Guild, which has pledged 10,000 jars of wildfire. The thought of so much wildfire makes Tyrion uncomfortable, and he asks where the money is coming from, given that Robert beggared the realm. Valar explains that Littlefinger has introduced a tax on entering the city. Tyrion considered this clever and cruel, since tens of thousands are fleeing the war for the supposed safety of the capital. When they arrive at the inn, he dismisses Valar and says he plans to stay the night. Inside, Tyrion finds Shae sitting with several Blackears and Varys. Tyrion is irritated that Varys found Shae so quickly and wonders who might have betrayed him. Varys says that he had a sudden urge to meet Tyrion's young lady, and Tyrion realizes that the eunuch is indirectly threatening him. The two exchange some veiled threats before Varys asks if Tyrion has seen the Red Comet. Tyrion replies that he is short, not blind. On the King's Road, it seemed to cover half the sky and outshone the moon. Varys tells Tyrion that on the streets it is called the Red Messenger, a herald before a king, to warn of fire and blood to follow. Before Varys leaves, he poses a riddle to Tyrion. In a room sit 3 great men, a king, a priest, and a rich man with his gold. Between them stands a sellsword, a little man of common birth and no great mind. Each of the great ones bid him slay the other 2. "Do it," says the king, "for I am your lawful ruler." "Do it," says the priest, "for I command you in the names of the gods." "Do it," says the rich man, "and all this gold will be yours. So tell me, who lives and who dies?" Once Varys is gone, Shae asks if it is the rich man who lives. Tyrion is not so sure, saying it depends on the sellsword. As they climb the stairs to their room, Shae has to wait for Tyrion. Tyrion notes that he still has to look up to her, even though she is only 5 feet tall, but he does not mind since she is so sweet. Shae quickly strips and then teases Tyrion that without her he will never be able to sleep in the Tower of the Hand without masturbating, and asks if that is why they call it the Tower of the Hand. She drags him to the bed and they make fierce love. Afterwards, Tyrion calls himself a fool. Shae is a whore and only after his coin. When Shae asks what Tyrion will do as Hand of the King, he tells her something Cersei will never expect. "I'll do justice." Bran prefers the stone window seat to his feather bed. A bed, the walls seem to close about him. Although he cannot walk, climb, hunt, or fight as he once did, Bran likes to watch the lights begin to glow all over Winterfell in the evening and hear the direwolves sing to the stars. Of late, Bran often dreams of wolves. When they howl, Bran feels the direwolves are talking to him, brother to brother. He can almost understand them as if they are singing in a language he once knew but has forgotten. His mother's new wards, Big Walder and Little Walder Frey, might be frightened of them, but old Nan told him the Starks have wolf blood, though it is stronger in some than in others. Summer's howls are full of grief and longing, while shaggy dogs are savage. Their voices echo around the castle, and it sounds as if a whole pack haunts Winterfell, instead of only 2, where once there were 6. Bran wonders if the wolves miss their siblings too. When Bran asked why the wolves howl, everyone gave him a different answer. Sir Roderick the Castellan had no time for such idle questions. Farland the Kennel Master believed it was for freedom. Gage the cook said they wanted to hunt, and Maester Luwin thought they were howling at the Red Comet because they thought it was the moon. When Bran repeated Luwin's words to Osha, the wildling, she declared that the wolves have more wit than his maester and knows the truths Luwin has forgotten. When Bran asked her what the comet meant, Osha replied, "Blood and fire, boy, and nothing sweet." Septon Chael thought the comet was the sword that slays the season, which makes sense to Bran since soon after the White Raven came from the Citadel to announce autumn.
Old Nan could not see the comet, but claimed she could smell it and said it foretold dragons. Hodor only said, Hodor. Still, the direwolves howl, the guards curse, the hounds bark, the horses kick, the walders shiver by their fire, and even Maester Luwin complains of sleepless nights. Only Bran does not seem to mind. Sir Roderick has confined the wolves to the Godswood after Shaggy Dog bit Little Walder, but the stones of Winterfell play tricks with sound. Sometimes the wolves sound like they are right below Bran's window, and other times they sound like they are up on the curtain walls. Bran wishes he could see them. Bran can see the comet hanging above the guards' hall, the bell tower, and the first keep. Once Bran knew every stone of those buildings, inside and out. He had climbed them all, scampering up walls as easily as other boys run downstairs. Their rooftops were his secret places, and the crows atop their broken tower were his special friends. Then he fell and almost died. Bran does not remember falling, yet he supposes it must be true. When his eyes fall on the weathered gargoyle atop the first keep where it happened, Bran gets a tight feeling in his belly. Now he cannot climb, walk, run, or sword fight, and his dreams of knighthood have soured. Summer howled when he fell, and for long after he lay broken, and Shaggy Dog and Grey Wind joined in his grief. Robb told him so before he went away to war. The night the bloody raven brought word of his father's death, the wolves knew that too. Bran wonders who the wolves are mourning now. Has some enemy slain the king in the north, who used to be his brother Robb? Or has his bastard brother Jon Snow fallen from the wall? Has his mother or one of his sisters died? Or is something else, as Luwin and Chael and Old Nan think? Bran thinks wishfully that if he were a direwolf he would understand. In his wolf dreams he can race up mountains taller than any tower and stand beneath the moon with the entire world below him, as it used to be. Bran cups his hands and begins howling like a wolf, hesitantly at first, but Summer gives answer, and so he tries again. The noise brings the guard called Hayhead to his door, but Bran only howls at him until he leaves. Hayhead returns with Maester Luwin, who suggests Bran should be asleep. Bran insists that he is talking to the wolves. When Luwin offers Bran assistance getting to bed, Bran insists he can do it himself with the iron bars Mikken installed, but he does not want to sleep. Luwin insists that even princes must sleep, but Bran explains that when he sleeps he turns into a wolf. He asks if wolves dreams. Luwin thinks so, but not as men dream. Thinking of his father, Bran asks if dead men dream. Maester Luwin says some think so, but the dead are silent on the matter. Then Bran asks if trees dream. Confused, Luwin says no, but Bran insists that they do and says he dreams of a weirwood tree calling to him sometimes. Bran says the wolf dreams are better. He can smell and sometimes taste the blood. This makes Maester Luwin uncomfortable, and he wishes Bran would spend more time with the other children. Bran insists that he hates the other children, meaning the Walders. He reminds Luwin that he commanded them sent away. Luwin grows stern as he explains that it is not for Bran to send his mother's wards away, and asks where they would go if they were turned out. Bran says they can go home, since it is their fault he cannot be with Summer. Luwin argues that Little Walder did not ask to be attacked, nor did Luwin himself. Bran reminds the Maester that Shaggy Dog was the attacker. Summer never bit anyone. Luwin reminds Bran that Summer tore out a man's throat in that very room, and claims the sweet pups have grown into dangerous beasts. Bran suggests they should have put the Walders in the Godswood. The boys can play Lord of the Crossing all they want, and Summer can sleep with Bran again. Bran complains that no one listens to him even though he is the prince. He is not even allowed to ride Dancer past the gate. Luwin insists that the Wolfwood is full of dangers, recalling Bran's last outing. Bran insists stubbornly that Summer would protect him and that princes should be free to sail and hunt and joust. Luwin asks why Bran torments himself with these dreams and reminds him that he is a boy of 8. Bran loses his temper and replies, "I'd sooner be a wolf. Then I could live in the wood and sleep when I wanted, and I could find Arya and Sansa. I'd smell where they were and go save them, and when Robb went to battle, I'd fight beside him like Grey Wind. I'd tear out the Kingslayer's throat with my teeth, rip,
and then the war would be over, and everyone would come back to Winterfell. If I was a wolf, ow! Maester Luwin attempts to reply, but Bran only howls louder until the Maester concedes and departs. Howling loses its savor once Bran is alone and he quiets. Resentfully, Bran recalls that he did welcome the Walders when they arrived from the twins. Rickon was the one who threw the tantrum then, screaming that he wanted mother and father and Robb, not these strangers. It was Bran who soothed him and welcomed the phrase. Even Maester Luwin said he did well. Then they played the Lord of the Crossing game in a pool in the Godswood. The game was played with a log, a stick, and a body of water, and a great deal of shouting. The Lord of the Crossing stood in the middle of the water and was the only one who got to use a stick. The other players had to make up speeches about who they were and why they should be allowed to cross. The Lord could make them swear oaths and answer questions. They didn't have to tell the truth, but the oaths were binding unless they said mayhaps, so the trick was to say mayhaps, so the Lord of the Crossing didn't notice, then knock the Lord into the water and become the new Lord of the Crossing. In practice, the game came down to mostly shoving, hitting, and falling into the water, along with a lot of loud arguments about whether or not someone said mayhaps. Little Walder was Lord of the Crossing as often as not. He is Little Walder even though he is tall and stout with a big belly. His cousin, Big Walder, is sharp-faced and skinny and half a foot shorter. The names came because Big Walder is 52 days older, so he was bigger at first. Big Walder explained that there were bunches of Walders at the twins, as well as a number of girls named Walda, all named after the boy's grandfather, Lord Walder Frey. Bran watched wistfully while the Walders played the Lord of the Crossing game with Turnip the cook's boy and Joseph's girls, Brandy and Shira. The Walders had decreed that Bran should judge whether people said mayhaps, but as soon as they started playing, they forgot all about him. The shouts and splashes soon drew others, Paula the kennel girl, Kane's boy Callan, and Fat Tom's son, Tom too. Before long, everyone was soaked, muddy, and laughing. Bran had not heard so much laughter since the Bloody Raven arrived. Bitterly, Bran told himself that no one would be Lord of the Crossing but him if he could use his legs. Then Rickon came running into the Godswood with Shaggy Dog and wanted to play. Shaggy Dog obeyed the command to stay until the first time Little Walder hit Rickon with the stick. Then, before Bran could blink, the Black Wolf attacked Little Walder. Oddly, after that, Rickon decided he liked the Walders. They never played Lord of the Crossing again, but they played Monsters and Maidens, Rats and Cats, and Come Into My Castle. They plundered the kitchens, raced around the walls, tossed bones to the pups, and trained with wooden swords. But when Rickon showed them the crypts under the castle, Bran had screamed that Rickon had no right to show them a stark place. The door to the bedchamber opens, and Maester Luwin returns with Osha, Hayhead, and a sleeping draught. Osha scoops Bran up and carries him effortlessly to the bed. Luwin assures Bran that the draught will give him a dreamless sleep. Bran wants to believe him. After he has taken the draught, Osha lingers behind to ask if it is the wolf dreams again. When Bran nods, Osha says he should not fight so hard, since maybe the old gods are trying to answer all his talk to the heart tree. Bran fades off to sleep before he can really reply, but when the darkness closes over him, he finds himself moving silently through the Godswood. Part of him knows it's only a dream, but even the dream of walking is better than the truth of his bedchamber. In his dream, it is dark amongst the trees, but the comet lights his way as he moves, swift and strong on 4 good legs. He can feel the ground underfoot, and the smells fill his head. The scent of squirrel reminds him of the taste of hot blood and bones cracking between his teeth. Slaver runs from his jaws, and he can hear the squirrel chittering and rustling safe above him. He can smell his brother too, loping around and around, tirelessly searching but never finding, for prey, for a way out, for his mother, for his litter mates, for his pack. Behind the trees the walls rise higher than any wolf can leap. Cold iron and splintery wood close off the only exits, but his brother still stops at each one to fruitlessly bare his fangs in rage. He did the same thing the first night, but learned it was no good. Circling the walls will not push them back, and marking the trees will keep no men away. The world has tightened around them, but beyond the wall still stands Winterfell, and beyond that the true world calls him, and he knows he must answer or die. Each day, Arya and the others travel from dawn to dusk, and at night they eat by the light of the red sword. The men take turns standing watch, since they can see the firelight of other travelers. Every night there are more camps, and every day there is more traffic on the King's Road. They meet every kind of person and every mode of transportation, but most come by foot with their goods on their shoulders and weary looks on their faces. They are all headed south toward King's Landing, and Arya wonders why no one else is going north like them. One morning, a passing merchant offers to buy Yoren's wagons for a quarter of their worth. He explains there is war to the north and claims Yoren will do better selling to him than being robbed by soldiers, but Yoren refuses. That same day, Arya notices the first grave dug for a child, and a few leagues on, Preed points out a whole row of them. After that, hardly a day passes without seeing one. One night, Arya wakes to find the night oddly quiet. When Preed does not wake the next morning, Arya realizes it was his coffin that was missing. They bury the sellsword where he slept and split his valuables amongst them. Yoren gives the longsword to the bull, claiming he has the arm to learn to wield it. That evening, they stop in a village at an ivy-covered inn. They cannot afford rooms, but Yoren arranges a hot meal and use of the bathhouse if anyone feels the need. Arya knows she must smell as bad as Yoren, but cannot risk revealing her gender by bathing. She rationalizes that it would be a shame to drown the creatures living in her clothes that have come all the way from Flea Bottom. The bull, Tarber, and Hot Pie line up for the bathhouse with some of the other men while the rest crowd into the common room. Yoren even sends Lami out with tankards for the 3 men who remain fettered in the wagon. The innkeeper gives them all a round of beer on the house and tells them that his brother Link was sent to the wall for filching pepper from his lord's table. Arya sips her beer cautiously, remembering how she enjoyed beer when her father permitted it, and how Sansa would make a sour face and insist wine was ever so much finer. The memories make her sad. The inn is full of refugees who scorn Yoren's plan to continue north. The innkeeper explains that half of the fields are burnt and the remaining people are walled up in holdfasts. Yoren insists that the Night's Watch takes no part, but the innkeeper points out that wild men have come down from the mountains of the moon, and the young Lord Stark has come south to war. Mention of her brother grabs Arya's attention. A man named Hod claims that Robb rides into battle on a wolf as big as a horse, which no one seems to believe. Then talk turns to the great pack of wolves near the God's Eye, who has even attacked men, led by a she-wolf from the 7th Hell. Talk of a she-wolf makes Arya wonder if the God's Eye is near the Trident, where she was forced to leave her direwolf Nymeria. One of the travelers claims that the she-wolf once snatched a baby from its mother's arms in the midst of a village, and that the men who pursued lost all their dogs and nearly their lives. Arya blurts out that this is just a story because wolves do not eat babies. The man asks what Arya would know about wolves, but Yoren gives her a shove and orders her outside before she can answer. Outside, the youngest and handsomest of the 3 men in the wagon calls to her with a friendly voice. Arya approaches warily, with one hand on needle. The man is slender and fine-featured, with red hair on one side and white on the other. He speaks in a strange syntax, referring to himself as a man and to Arya as a boy, and his accent reminds her of Syrio Forel. He asks for another beer and suggests he could use a bath, claiming Arya could make a friend. Arya insists that she has friends, but the noseless prisoner remarks that he cannot see any. The 3rd prisoner only hisses and sticks out the stump of his tongue. The friendly prisoner begs forgiveness for his present company and introduces himself as Jaqen Hagar from Lorath. He introduces the noseless man as Rorge and the other as Biter, a name Jaqen gives the mute because of his filed teeth. Rorge curses and throws his tankard at Arya, demanding more beer, but she manages to dodge. Asking herself what Syrio would do, Arya draws her practice sword. Rorge threatens her, but Arya recalls her mantra,
Fear cuts deeper than swords and approaches the wagon. When Biter lurches at her, Arya hits him hard between the eyes. Biter reels back but then throws all his weight against his chains and attempts to grab her again. When the bonds hold and Biter collapses, Jaqen H'ghar observes that Arya has more courage than sense. Arya backs away from the wagon again. When she feels a hand on her shoulder, she whirls around, but it is only the bull, who reminds her that Yoren warned them not to go near the three in the wagon. Arya insists that they do not scare her, but the bull replies, "Then you're stupid. They scare me." As the bull leads her away, Arya hears Rorge laughing and Biter hissing behind them. Wanting to hit something, Arya asks if the bull wants to fight. Startled, he warns her how strong he is, but Arya argues that she is quick. The bull draws Praed's longsword and declares it is cheap steel, but still a real sword. Arya draws needle and declares that it is good steel, which makes it even realer. They each ask the other to promise not to cry if they get cut. Arya assumes her water dancer's stance, but the bull is distracted by 6 gold cloaks riding up the King's Road on lathered horses. As the gold cloaks draw up in front of the inn, Arya pulls the bull behind a tall hedge and tells him to be as quiet as a shadow. The gold cloak officers ask some of the recruits outside the bathhouse if they are the ones who left King's Landing to take the black. The men say they might be, so the officer dismounts and declares he has a warrant for a certain boy. Yoren steps out of the inn to ask who wants the boy. The officer presents his warrant and declares that Queen Cersei sent them. Behind the hedge, the bull asks why he and Arya are hiding. Arya explains that it is her they are after. The bull asks why the queen would want her, but Arya tells him to be quiet. Yoren declares the warrant pretty, but insists that the boy is in the Night's Watch, so what he did back in the city does not matter. The officer declares that neither he nor the queen cares. Arya considers running, but knows she cannot escape. She decides she is tired of running. A real water dancer would never run. Yoren insists that the gold cloaks will have no one, since there are no laws on such things. The officer draws his short sword and declares it his law. Yoren only looks at the blade and declares, "That's no law, just a sword. Happens I got one too." The officer threatens that he has 5 men with him, but Yoren spits and declares that he has 30. A gold cloak with a broken nose laughs and asks who is first. In a gesture of solidarity, Tabar takes up a pitchfork, Cutjack pulls out his hammer, Kurz draws his skinning knife, Kaz strings his longbow, Rayson snatches up his staff, Dauber, fresh from the bath, drops everything but his dagger, and Hotpie scrambles to find a big rock. Arya is amazed. She hates Hotpie, so why would he risk his life for her? Refusing to let the others die for her, Arya shoves through the hedge with Needle and joins the others. The gold cloak with the broken nose laughs and tells her to put away the blade, calling her a girl. Arya insists she is not a girl, furious that they did not understand she is the one they want. Yet, when the bull comes up behind her, the officer declares him the one they want. It is a mistake to take his eyes off Yoren. However, and quick as a snake, Yoren places his sword at the officer's throat. Yoren declares that the gold cloaks will have neither of them, and reminds the officer that he has even more brothers in the inn. The officer drops his sword, and Yoren declares that good steel is always needed on the wall. The officer declares that Yoren has best hurry back to the wall, and promises that if he catches Yoren again, he will take his head as well as the boys. Yoren declares that better men have tried, and slaps the officer's horse with his sword. The other gold cloaks follow. Once the gold cloaks are out of sight, Hot Pie whoops in triumph, but Yoren remains angry and orders everyone up and moving. If they ride all night, they may be able to stay ahead for a while. After giving the officer's sword to Hot Pie, Yoren walks over to the bull and declares that the queen wants him bad. Arya asks why the queen would want a bastard boy like the bull, but the bull asks why she would want a gutter rat like Arya. Suspicious that the bull is more than he appears, Arya asks his true name. He replies that it is Gendry. Yoren claims not to know why anyone would want either of them, but declares they cannot have them regardless.
He orders Gendry and Arya to take the two coursers and orders them to ride hard for the wall at the first sight of a gold cloak, since the rest of them mean nothing to the gold cloaks. Jon calls out to Samwell Tarly amidst the ancient books and scrolls of Castle Black's library. Jon wends his way down the narrow aisles towards the glow of Sam's lamp to find the fat boy hunched over a table. When Jon asks if he has been there all night, Sam reveals that he had lost all track of time in the windowless cellar. Jon calls Sam a sweet fool and reminds him that soon they will be sleeping on hard ground, not soft beds. Sam yawns and explains that Maester Aemon sent him to find maps for Lord Commander Mormont, but he never thought there would be thousands of interesting documents to read. Jon is unimpressed by the books and asks if Sam found the maps. Sam gestures towards a clutter of books and scrolls on the table and declares he has found at least a dozen. He shows Jon a faded parchment that marks the sites of many wildling villages. Then he excitedly shows Jon an account of arranging to Lorne Point by a ranger named Redwine from before the Targaryen conquest that mentions fighting with giants and trading with the children of the forest. Meaning to sound encouraging, Jon suggests that Sam can write an account of their own great ranging, but talk of what they are to face on the morrow makes Sam uncomfortable. He shuffles scrolls about and says there are more maps if only he had time to set the library in order, which will take years. Jon remarks that the Lord Commander wanted the maps a little sooner than that. When Jon picks up a scroll, it crumbles in his hand. Sam explains that the most important documents were copied over when needed, and the oldest have likely been copied 100 times. Jon says there is no need to copy this one, which is only a list of goods. Sam seems fascinated, but Jon wonders who would care how much pickled cod men ate 600 years ago. Sam insists that he would, since it can tell them how many men were in the Night's Watch and how they lived and what they ate. Jon responds that they ate food and lived as he and Sam do. Sam disagrees and claims that the vault is a treasure trove. Jon is dubious. To him, treasure means gold, silver, and jewels. Sam has also found works even the Citadel does not have. Drawings of weirwood faces, 1,000-year-old counts of the seasons, scrolls from old Valyria, and even a book about the language of the children of the forest. Jon assures Sam the books will still be here when they return, but Sam replies, "If we return." Jon tries to reassure Sam by pointing out that Mormont is taking 200 seasoned men, most of them rangers, and Quarren Halfhand will join them with 100 more from the Shadow Tower. He insists Sam will be as safe as back at Horn Hill, but Sam replies that he was never safe there either. Jon thinks it a cruel joke that Pip and Toad, who want to go, are to remain behind, while Sam, the self-proclaimed coward, must go in Maester Aemon's place to tend to the cages of ravens. Sam argues that Jon or Gren could take care of the ravens, and Jon can write messages as well as he can. Jon insists that he has his own duties as the Lord Commander's steward. He reminds Sam that he has said the vows, but Sam says that a brother of the Night's Watch should not be so scared. Jon insists they are all scared, and they should be with so many rangers disappearing in the last 2 years. But what matters is how they face it. Then he offers to help gather up the maps, and they depart the library. The vault opens onto one of the underground passages called the Warm Walks, which binds Castle Black together in winter. He thinks of the white raven that came to Maester Aemon and knows winter will come soon. He remembers the last winter, which was short and mild, but he can feel this one will be different. By the time they reach the surface, Sam is out of breath. The sight of the wall reminds Jon that it marks the end of the world, and tomorrow they are going beyond it. The morning sky is streaked by clouds, but the red comet is still visible behind them, even by day. The Black Brothers have dubbed it Mormont's torch, claiming, only half in jest, that the gods have sent it to light the way through the haunted forest. The castle seems deserted with so many gone to the brothel in Molestown. Gren is among them, since Pimp and Huldah and Toad offered to buy him his first woman. They invited Jon and Sam as well, but Jon insisted on keeping his vow of celibacy, and Sam is as frightened of whores as he is of everything else. As they pass the sept, they hear a hymn being sung. Jon notes that on the eve of battle, some men want whores and some want gods. He wonders who feels better after. The sept tempts him no more than the brothel. The seven have no power beyond the wall, but the nameless old gods whom Jon worships will be waiting there. Outside the armory, Sir Andrew Tarth is training the 6 new recruits brought in the previous night. Sir Andrew is a gentler master-at-arms than Sir Alliser Thorne, but his lessons can still raise bruises. Sam winces at the sight, but Jon watches closely. From the door of the armory, the one-armed smith Donald Noy asks Jon's opinion of the recruits. Jon declares they smell of summer and asks why Conwy recruited them. Noy says it was a dungeon near Gulltown and labels the recruits as a brigand, a barber, a beggar, 2 orphans, and a boy whore. Jon replies that they will do. He and Sam did. Noy asks Jon if he has heard that his brother Robb Stark is now a king. Jon admits that last night in the common room there was talk of little else. Jon is still unsure how he feels about the brother he grew up with becoming a king while he remains on the wall, but he tells Noy that Robb will make a good king. Noy is not so sure and declares that once he might have said the same of Robert Baratheon, but Robert was never the same after he put on that crown. Noy confirms that he forged Robert's warhammer and claims he knew the Baratheon brothers as well as anyone. The smith compares Robert to a sword, made for fighting and prone to rust if left unused. When Jon asks if Robert's brothers are the same, Noy considers for a moment, then declares, "Robert was the true steel. Stannis is pure iron, black and hard and strong. Yes, but brittle the way iron gets. He'll break before he bends. And Renly, that one, he's copper, bright and shiny, pretty to look at, but not worth all that much at the end of the day." Jon wonders what metal Robb is, but decides it's best not to ask. Noy was a Baratheon man before taking the black and likely believes Robb is a traitor. There is an unspoken pact amongst the Watch not to probe too deeply into such matters, since old loyalties are not easily forgotten. Even Sam's former house is sworn to Highgarden, which has supported Renly. As Jon departs with Sam, Noy offers a prayer for Jon on the morrow and urges him to bring his uncle back. Jon leaves Ghost outside the door of the King's Tower, where Lord Commander Mormont resides now that fire has gutted his own tower. Sam is disheartened by the number of stairs, but Jon jests that stairs are one thing they will not confront beyond the wall. When they enter the Solar, Mormont complains about how long it took them. Ignoring the boys, Thorin Smallwood argues that the Lord Commander's place is at Castle Black. Mormont declares that Smallwood can do as he likes if he ever becomes Lord Commander. Smallwood insists that the command should be his as First Ranger, but Mormont will have none of it. He declares that he has already sent out 2 rangings and will not wait and wonder if the third is lost as well. Mormont dismisses Smallwood with the reminder that Benjen Stark remains First Ranger until his death is confirmed. Once Smallwood is gone, Mormont explains that he would sooner name Sam as First Ranger and complains that Smallwood called him too old for a ranging. Briskly examining the maps, Mormont asks if they were all Sam could find. When Sam stutters, Jon points out that the villages might be gone, but the geography will still be correct. Mormont asks Sam about the ravens and commands that he wants the best, saying that if they are all butchered, he means for his successor to know where and how. Talk of butchery leaves Sam open-mouthed and speechless. Mormont declares he is too busy for such behavior and dismisses Sam, who almost trips in his haste to leave. Mormont asks, without waiting for an answer, whether Sam is as big a fool as he seems. He explains that he was considering sending Sam as an envoy to King Renly, since his father stands high in Renly's councils, but Renly is not likely to heed a quaking fat boy, so Sir Arnel, whose mother was a green apple Fossaway, will go instead. Jon asks what Mormont would have of King Renly, and Mormont replies that he will take anything that is offered. Mormont continues that Sir Alliser Thorne should reach King Joffrey soon, but House Lannister has never been a friend to the Watch. Jon points out that Thorne does have the twitching White's hand to show them. Mormont laments they do not have a second hand to send to Renly. Jon remarks that Tywin claims a man can find anything beyond the wall. Mormont scoffs that Tywin also claims he saw a bear 15 feet tall, insisting a man must believe his own eyes. Turning the conversation back to hands, Mormont asks about his burned hand. Jon explains it is well enough to wield Longclaw and that he is exercising the fingers as Maester Aemon suggested. Mormont opines that Aemon knows his work and prays they can keep him another 20 years. Then he asks if Jon knows that Aemon could have been king. Jon is taken by surprise. He assumed the Maester was a younger son of a king. Mormont explains that Aemon was a younger son, the third son of King Maekar the First Targaryen, who was himself the fourth son of King Daeron the Second Targaryen. Slow of sword but quick of wit, Aemon was sent to the Citadel when he was 9 or 10, and 9th or 10th in succession. Jon struggles to imagine the 100-year-old Maester as a little boy. Mormont continues that Crown Prince Baelor died in a tourney mishap, and soon after his two sons, Valar and Materys, died in the Great Spring Sickness along with King Daeron. So the crown passed to Daeron's second son, Aerys the First Targaryen. Aerys reigned for 12 years, during which Aemon took his vows as a maester, then died without issue, and the throne passed to Aemon's father, Maekar I. During his father's reign, Aemon's eldest brother, Daeron the Drunken, died of a pox, leaving only a feeble-minded daughter and his second brother, Aerion Targaryen, who killed himself by drinking wildfire, believing it would turn him into a dragon. Less than a year later, King Maekar died in battle with an outlaw lord. A great council was convened to decide on the succession. It passed over Aerion's infant son and quietly offered the throne to Maester Aemon, but Aemon chose to abide by his vows even after the High Septon offered to absolve him. Therefore, his younger brother, Aegon the Fifth Targaryen, was named king and became known as the Unlikely because, as the fourth son of a fourth son, he was never expected to become king. Yet Maester Aemon knew that those dissatisfied with his brother's rule would seek to use him, so he became a member of the Night's Watch and remained at the wall while his brother's descendants ruled as kings until Robert's rebellion put an end to the line of the Dragon Kings. Mormont's raven begins repeating the word king. Jon notes that the bird seems to like the word, and suggests that perhaps the raven believes Mormont should have a crown. Mormont declares that there are 3 kings already, which is 2 too many for his liking. Jon asks why Mormont has told him all this about Maester Aemon. Mormont explains that Jon and Aemon have something in common, a king for a brother. Jon points out that they also share a vow. Mormont comments that if he had a man for every vow he has seen broken, the wall would never lack for defenders. Jon says he always knew Robb would be Lord of Winterfell, but Mormont insists that a king is a different thing. They will garb your brother Robb in silks, satin, and velvets of 100 different colors, while you live and die in black ringmail. He will wed some beautiful princess and father sons on her. You will have no wife, nor will you ever hold a child of your own blood in your arms. Robb will rule, you will serve. Men will call you a crow. Him they will call your grace. Singers will praise every little thing he does, while your greatest deeds will go unsung. Tell me that none of this troubles you, Jon, and I'll name you a liar, and now I have the truth of it. Jon asks what a bastard like himself might do if these facts did trouble him, but Mormont asks what Jon will do. Jon declares that he will be troubled, but keep his vows.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thanks again for stopping by and watching my video. I truly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to come back for more. Thanks again. Bye.